Okay, guys, we're going to witness a clash between two groups of woman worshipers, right? Both these guys are our enemy. In this case, it's PragerU and Casual Revolt. They're arguing on how they should worship women the best way, right? So let's get into this.
I am going to be reacting today to yet another PragerU video. Yay! I'm sure we're all excited about that.
Well, you should be. This is your bread and butter. This is low-hanging fruit for you to make your coin.
This one is titled, what is this one titled? This one's titled, Do Women Belong in Combat? Sweet Jesus. Okay.
Notice he didn't say yes or no. I say yes. As long as men are forced to do it, women should be forced to do it.
So we'll be watching this one. Um, we'll see how it goes. If you like my content, you can become a member on the channel for as little as 99 cents a month.
If you guys want to watch my content, you just can. It's for free. My concern is my personal rights and yours. You don't have to pay me a dime. And dude, get a job.
You can hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of when I go live. I do live streams almost every day, and excuse me, I'm disgusting. I'm just burping all over. And whatever else there is out
Yeah, this guy hates shilling, but let's face it, it's either that or get a real job.
there. Okay, so let's get into this. As you all know, probably know by now, PragerU is the Trump administration has been pushing to make PragerU replace public broadcasting broadcasts. Okay, and it's also being taught in a lot of schools in the United States.
Yeah, it's basically the same as putting Christianity into science. Same idea.
At the instigation of the Trump administration. All right, so here we go.
Women do not belong in combat. I say this as a woman and a soldier. I've seen war.
So, okay, I have a complex view on this topic, but let me.
Beware of guys who use these two words, complex and nuance. This is a very simple issue. It's cut and dried. Either women are forced to suffer the same things men do, or they aren't. You're either for equality or you aren't. There's nothing nuanced about this. It's only nuanced to him because he wants to pretend he's about equality while enforcing inequality against men.
Start off by saying this. That is a logical fallacy to say I am a woman, therefore my views on women must be correct, or my views on women fighting in the military must be correct. Okay.
It may be, but you're basically pointing out this, the slopsistic of women. I've seen this before. A woman likes something, therefore she thinks every other woman should or does like the same thing or dislike the same thing, right?
Women are human beings. They have a whole bunch of different opinions. Just because one woman has one certain opinion does not mean that's
also, there are certain opinions that all women do hold. This woman is voicing the opinions of women. Women do not want to join the military and face what men do. This woman joined knowing that she would never face combat. She is LARPing as a soldier.
representative of all women, or indeed of reality. Same thing for men. Okay. Okay.
Or firsthand in all its ugliness and brutality. In 2017, I served in the U.S. Army Special Operations Command in Afghanistan. My job was to engage with local women, something my male colleagues were discouraged from doing because...
Well, there you go. See, this is equality, right? You can't have male soldiers talking to the uber women of another country. Notice when it's the opposition, the men in the country are scum, but the women are the ones that we should be worshiping. I thought these women were the other. Notice the military despises the men that works for them so badly, they won't allow them to talk to foreign women. Only women have the right to speak to their equals, right? Now, this guy doesn't even mention about this inequality right here, right? Because he's all for inequality as long as it's for men.
Of religious and cultural barriers. That access was critical to our mission.
Religious and cultural barriers. What would a Western woman have in common with, you know, a Middle East woman other than her gender, right?
I saw up close what our warfighters had to do to succeed, to survive, and to protect civilians. I was as close to combat as you could get, and think
She was as close to combat as she get, but she didn't have to actually be in it. She's admitting it. Women who join the military don't have to face combat. That's for their male inferiors, right?
Also, you always notice in these PragerU videos, whenever there's women, they always use the color pink. Like,
Dude, feminists have taken the color pink for themselves. You don't see those protests in the streets with all the feminists with the pink hats? No, this is their choice. You're going to have to just come to terms with that.
like always trying to use like baby level gender coloring schemes here.
So feminists are using baby colors? Okay. Thanks for admitting that.
Okay.
God, I didn't get any closer. I'm proud of my military service. There are many roles in the armed forces that women can and should fill, but combat is not one of them.
There you go. See, combat is for the male inferiors. So women join the military knowing that there's not going to be equality for them.
Okay, so here's my spicy take here, folks. I don't think anyone should fill combat roles in the military. Yeah, I know we need militaries because wars happen.
What a lame take. As soon as women have to pony up, that's when people say, oh, well, nobody should have to. Right.
Human beings are awful, et cetera, et cetera. But the notion here that men, because so let's say I agree with the premise. I don't, but let's say
Notice this guy said nothing about the fact that male soldiers weren't allowed to talk to females of the opposing team. That goes right over his head because he agrees with that.
I agree with the premise that women shouldn't be on the front lines. Why then should men also have to be dealing with direct combat where people are being blown into pieces, shot up, taken away from their families to do this?
Well, someone has to bribe the women somehow. That's what war is about. Revolt. War is about appeasing women. It's killing other men, taking their stuff, and bringing it back home to pander and bribe to the women there. That's what war is.
If you don't want women to fight in the front lines, hey, I'm all for that. But I don't think men should be forced to fight in the front lines either. And I'm also continuously annoyed by all the burdens placed on men in terms of they're the only ones that have to get drafted and things like that. And that's not to say I want women to have to experience that too. I just don't like that men's masculinity is weaponized against them to make them go off and fight and die for useless causes overseas.
That's what masculinity is for. It's always been a weaponized label. Masculinity, revolt, just translates into serving women. An unmasculine man is one that isn't validated by women. So if you're someone who wants to reject masculinity label, you also have to reject trying to please the opposite sex. In this video, this guy will try and please the opposite sex. So you will always hold on to the masculinity label.
Or it's painted out as being, well, that's their manly masculine duty is to go fight and die for oil or whatever overseas. It's moronic, okay? I know that's not really the topic of this video, but if we're going to be honest, maybe we shouldn't force anyone to fight on the front lines. I know lots of men who don't want to go fight on the front lines, okay?
There's no man who wants to fight on the front lines. Even the guys who engage in it, they hope to murder other men and take their stuff. That's what the actual goal is. Not to fight for their country.
Until recently, it was conventional wisdom not to put women on the front lines. The principle that combat is a male.
When and where? That's so, as a historian, I can tell you when and where, because, for example, in the Soviet Union during the Second World War, there were female snipers on the front lines shooting Nazis.
True, but they were very rare, as usual. And also, sniping isn't the same as close quarter combat, facing an enemy. Right. And by the way, you ever notice how this woman, they're using children to defend her lack of participation. Women hide behind children. That should disgust you. Casual revolt.
There are other instances in history. We can look at some of the Trun sisters from Vietnam who went into battle on the back of elephants against Chinese forces. There was a woman in India who rode into battle with her son strapped to her back.
I don't believe that at all. I'll just tell you that to your face. I don't believe that whatsoever.
Rani of Jhansi was her name. I mean, this depends on where you are in history, the time period you're talking about, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so no, I don't know what can. Yeah, overall, I suppose that has been the case that men have been the ones who have done the combat. But again, they are cherry picking, or maybe not.
No, you were cherry picking.
Not cherry picking, but overgeneralizing to fit their preconceived biases. Also,
Overgeneralization. So you're actually for generalization. But if it doesn't work for your motive, whatever motivates you, then it's too much. Right?
and notice just on the screen here,
If it doesn't support your claims, then it's too much.
combat is a male burden. This is what I was saying earlier. Why? Why do men have to be the ones who are burdened with going and getting traumatized permanently in war?
Because that's how it works if you want to be selected by women, if you want a female partner. War is female driven, or I should say the desire for women. Oh, who am I kidding? For women. Women love the luxuries that they get from defeated enemies. Men have to bribe women into their lives, dude. That's why war happens.
Why does anyone have to be burdened with that? Secondly, you notice here again on the left, they're painting the woman as having, as pink, and her son is blue. Again, almost a childlike color scheme.
Well, the soldier's also in blue. So the colors aren't childlike. Blue represents the male, pink the female. So you're not making a point here. And again, feminists have adopted pink as their color. So you can't, blame PragerU for this.
Obviously portraying her as a mother, another classic kind of gendered stereotype here.
Are you claiming that women as mothers are stereotypes?
I mean, like, what if she is an athlete, right? What if there was an athlete as opposed to comparing a mother to a soldier? Why don't you compare an athlete to a soldier or a business executive to a soldier?
Because they're trying to give women a pass, just like you, right? Again, motherhood is just hiding behind children. You have to be a real lowlife to hide behind children. That's why they have the baby up front and the woman behind her, right?
Or whatever. Okay, I mean, anyway. So gotta love PragerU's consistent ability to stereotype based off gender.
Burden has been nearly universal across civilizations.
Well, how many of these female soldiers actually do have to face possible combat roles, and then they become magically pregnant and they're giving an option out. They allow pregnancy as an opting out feature for women, something men can't do, because they don't want women to have to suffer male burdens. That's why.
There's an obvious reason for this. Men are, on average, stronger, faster, and more capable of delivering and withstanding extreme violence.
That last part is a total lie. Men are just flesh and blood, just like women. We're no better at taking bullets than women are. We're not better at withstanding violence. And as for the faster and stronger, there are boy soldiers, dude. People say children soldiers, they mean child soldiers, they mean boy soldiers. There are no little girls forced into becoming soldiers, right? Now, an 8-year-old boy isn't going to be any as strong as a full-grown woman. So this isn't about strength or speed. This is about, do you view the person as someone disposable or not? So they're saying women are too valuable for that. Women are the upper crust. They can't be treated like peasants. Peasants have to pick the cotton, not the upper crust. Let's see if this guy gets it right.
That's not a
So, okay. Admittedly, yes. What I mean by that is men have more testosterone. It's easier for men to build muscle mass. There are
Yeah, but muscle mass isn't bulletproof, dude.
other things too that
You just said, hey, there were female snipers in the Russian army, right? They don't need a lot of muscle mass to pull the trigger from a long distance, do they?
are somewhat biological. I do appreciate that they mentioned, though, that this is on average. So that it's not the same for all men, and there are plenty of women who are stronger than men, okay? So yes, on average, we could make
This is neither here nor there. They snatch up boys who are in teen. Look, Second World War, there are young guys who are in their teens that lied about their age. You think they were all hulks? No. They snatch up weakling guys all the time to get ground up in the war machine.
come to that sort of conclusion. That being said, um, that last one that they mentioned, men are more capable of withstanding violence. So that I could debate with, though, because women have to give birth. And there
You see, this is what all these women worshippers do this. You're talking about them stereotyping women as mothers, but now you're bringing it up, right? But this is going to be, women are tougher than you think, but they still shouldn't have to burden what men do, right?
are studies that show that men, for example, due to biological differences, especially more testosterone, actually experience illness worse, as in men will feel more pain and stuff when they're ill. There's that
I don't believe that study out. That's bullshit propaganda. What it is, when men complain, people piss on them because no one wants to see male vulnerability. No one wants to see a sick cotton picker. Lame horses are put down, right? So you are citing some bullshit study to try to brag women up, right?
idea that men are babies when they get sick. I know I am. That's might be
I'm not. I just get sick like everyone else, just like the women do.
biological. And so the question is, and they're more capable of experiencing pain in what circumstances? Because women are definitely capable of experiencing a lot of pain and suffering that men
Yeah, but they don't have to, dude. They might be capable, but they're not have to. These women aren't obligated to throw their lives away in war. It would defeat the purpose, right? The purpose of war is to pander to women. So women going into war would defeat that purpose.
may not be able to in certain circumstances. I get what they're saying, but again, we need to be more nuanced here.
stereotype. It's basic physiology.
No, we don't need to be more nuanced. You want to be able to brag women up while defending their privilege of not having to suffer what men do. That's why you have to be nuanced. You want it both ways. Remember, when guys say nuanced, what they want, what they're trying to tell you is they want it both ways.
And common sense tells us a society that places women, the bearers of new life, on the front lines is not prioritizing its future.
Really? Then why did you join? Right?
Yet, in 2015, the Obama administration ordered the full integration of women into all military combat roles.
Now, this is about the next generation. Yet birth rates are dropping because women aren't interested in being pregnant. They don't want to deal with pregnancy or children. So she's making an argument, that she's hiding behind the argument that, hey, the next generation is so important. So we can't have women get killed like men. Yet she doesn't care that women are deciding not to give birth anyway. So this isn't about the next generation. This is simply hiding behind that idea. That's all it is. It's excuse making. We'll see if genius here connects the dots.
Including
So she makes it sound like overnight women were all the women who weren't in combat roles are put into combat roles. No, there is still a massive minority of women, like a very small minority of women who serve on the front lines. We're talking
Yeah, because they don't want to and they don't have to. That's why.
like in the hundreds, probably. I might be exaggerating a bit, but it is a very small number. And the only way you can serve in the front lines is if you meet the physical requirements of serving in the front lines. So yeah, the women that are serving on the front lines are serving on the front lines because they meet the physical requirements.
Okay, this woman worshiper is making an excuse for women. They're not serving there because they don't want to be there and no one's forcing them. That's why.
It's not like they're just throwing all the women into the front lines. If you're there, it's because you should be there because you can meet the physical requirements. Okay. Once again, look, I just find this hilarious. This woman here.
But she also should be there because you're for equality, right? There should be one woman for every man in the military, in the front lines. That would be equality.
Here in pink, even though she has an assault rifle and stuff like that, like trying to feminize even like a woman who is a deadly warrior. Like anyway,
Well, why not? Can't female warriors be warriors? Can't you be a feminine warrior?
okay, and there's nothing wrong with femininity, but but you know what they're trying to imply with this, and what is femininity to begin with, anyway?
special operations.
It's privilege. That's what it is. Just as the masculine label means servant, the feminine label means aristocrat. A feminine woman, she's on top. She doesn't work for a living. She doesn't self-sacrifice.
And mixed gender infantry units.
Yep.
At the time, many of us in uniform knew this was a mistake, and we had the data to prove it. A U.S. Marine Corps study that same year.
Okay, I know about this study. I'll see if they actually get it right. Well, I've actually read this study, so we'll see.
This study, by the way, is neither here nor there. It's completely unimportant. You'll see what I mean.
Oh.
Found that all male units outperformed mixed gender units in nearly every measurable category. Mixed units had slower times in obstacle courses. Women were 6 times more likely to suffer musculoskeletal injuries than men.
Yeah, they're not. I'll explain.
Women took longer to evacuate wounded comrades to safety. Where male Marines could do single-person lifts,
oh, look at
female Marines often had to...
So his problem is that in his mind, they're disrespecting women. It has nothing to do with the fact that, men are suffering inequality. He doesn't give a shit about that, right? Again, there's child soldiers. There are boy soldiers. Boy soldiers are more likely to be injured. And that's fine with PragerU. So again, they're making excuses.
Convert to 2-person drags, which were slower and less efficient.
How many little boys do you think it takes to drag a full-grown man? No one cares because they're just cannon fodder because they're male.
In war, those gaps aren't theoretical. they're fatal. Military experts.
Okay, good. So, all right. So you saw their argument there, right? Yes, this study happened. You'll notice, I believe the date was, did they say 2015?
Yeah, they did.
I think it was 2015. Just going to go back really fast. I believe it was 2015, which
Units
was
outperformed mixed gender units in nearly every measurable category.
Only a year or so, or maybe it was the year that women were allowed on frontline roles.
No, they weren't allowed. They were actually forced to some degree. To some degree, not forced altogether. Even that's a lie. They really weren't forced. This female soldier proves it. She was never forced in the front lines. They pushed for some kind of semblance of equality. That's not the same as not being allowed. Dude, men don't want to be on the front lines. Women don't want to be in front lines. It's not because they were being held back that they weren't given the right. Women weren't snapping, at the jaws. I'm screwing up that phrase. Chomping at the bit to join in the war and get their faces shot off. That's a fact. So see how these female worshipers try to place this. Women have this privilege of not having to get shot in war, but I'm going to, frame it as they're being held back. Whenever women show their privilege, it's always men are holding them back.
The things that this study did not consider was this. One, the women in those mixed combat units, because the women had not been allowed in frontline positions for very long, the women in those mixed combat units had far less combat experience than the.
Okay, this is why I'm saying this is neither here nor there. This is unimportant. The fact is, those women don't have to suffer war like men do. That's the point of this. But he's bogging it down, saying these studies, they don't put women in a good light. That's all he cares about.
Male Marines that were in those combat units. So was I guess some of their inability to meet the same level as single gender combat units linked to their gender, or was it a lack of experience? It's completely unclear. I would argue a lot of it's a lack of experience because women had not been allowed on frontline combat for very long.
See, they weren't allowed, dudes. It's not that they just didn't want to be there. They weren't allowed. Right?
Second of all, the Marine Corps, when the Obama administration attempted to integrate American combat units with both men and women, the Marine Corps specifically asked for an exception because they have a long history of being hyper masculine and not.
Hey, thanks for admitting that masculinity is a slave label. They're hyper masculinity, right? They're hyper masculine, which means they don't want their betters to join them and get shot. Females are above them. So they can't suffer like we do, right? Again, dude, you're missing the whole point. War is female driven. Men worship women, right? They don't want them. The whole point of a man going to war is to kill another man, take his stuff, and bribe his woman with it. Having the woman be there with you and die defeats that purpose. It defeats the purpose of war.
Not the best towards women. I got to be honest with you. So was there a bias involved in these results? Could be. And if not, okay. But that doesn't change the fact that the women had less experience because they hadn't been in frontline combat roles up until that point. Thirdly, despite the stats that they talked about, which were true in regards to, some of the things I mentioned.
Some of the things they mentioned. Okay, so there was truth to what they had to say. Right, okay.
The results of these mixed combat operations were just as successful as the monogender units. So they all still accomplished their goals and their objectives.
Okay, then you should be full for having one woman for every guy in the front lines. This is what you should be saying. Hey, you're one of those progressives, right? You're for equality. Let's hear you say it.
Mixed combat units still accomplished all the objectives they were set out to do. Okay. So if you want to look at this is not a reliable study. Okay. You need multiple studies, and especially one done by the Marine Corps, which is known to be biased, and that was done with women who hadn't had any frontline experience before. You see where I'm going.
Year found that all male units outperformed mixed gender units in nearly
Yeah. We
every
saw this.
measurable
We saw this.
category.
Blah, blah, blah.
So notice he didn't say that. He didn't say, hey, women, there should be one woman for every guy in the front line. He'll never say this because he's not actually for equality. He's for the opposite. He agrees with PragerU. The only thing he has a problem with is saying that women are lesser than men in any way or form.
Okay.
Women took longer to evacuate wounded
Yeah,
comrades
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
safety. Where male
Okay.
Marines could do single-person lifts, female Marines often had to revert to two-person drags, which were slower and less efficient. In war, those gaps aren't theoretical, they're fatal. Military experts, including those
Like I said, though, folks, they all succeeded in their missions, right?
in the Israeli Defense Forces, have identified
Like I said, why do I care?
Oh my God.
additional
Why
concern.
why are we always talking about the Israeli Defense Forces? Like, I don't understand. It's a foreign country. Why are we always talking about
Because Israel is an attack dog for the U.S. in the Middle East. That's why they're important to them. What's there not to understand?
the Israeli Defense Forces? And why do whatever they're going to talk about here, the concerns of experts from the Israeli Defense Forces impact American military? Like, I just
It's neither here nor there. If Israel wasn't saying it, the United States would say it. So it doesn't matter.
okay.
In mixed gender combat units, the Israelis found male soldiers often shifted focus away from the mission to protect their female comrades. Their natural
Yeah, that's a good point, see? Because again, dude, revolt. The whole purpose of war is to pander to women. So having women, the ones you want to pander to, die with you defeats its purpose.
instinct, even if it
Okay. So, all right. Okay, they shift. So the male people, the male soldiers, shifted their focus away to protect the female soldiers. Now, I don't know about you. One, I know I keep doing these numbering things to keep track of
Use making coming.
my thoughts here. Number one, wouldn't you want males to do that for other males? Like,
But they don't. The whole idea is that they're willing to sacrifice their fellow males to complete the mission. And the opposite is true. When women are involved, they're willing to sacrifice the mission for women.
don't you want to protect your fellow soldiers? And by the way, it tends to happen naturally. If you have a wounded male soldier, other male soldiers might stop focusing on the combat mission to assist.
Okay, now you're just making up lies, dude. Because you know what they're saying. They want to protect their fellow males, but they are willing to see men die, their fellow men die while they're pushing through, trying to commit to a goal. And they're not willing to do that for women. The mission fails because the women are the mission. I'm going to repeat that. The mission fails because the women are the mission to men. Men go to war for women. Period.
That wounded soldier. That doesn't sound like that bad of a thing to me. Second of all, let's say that they were particularly focused on women.
They are.
Well, that sounds like an issue with the male soldiers, not with the women.
That's a good point, and that's true. You're talking about male psychology. Right.
Even though, as I said before, don't you want your soldiers to protect fellow soldiers who are in danger? So maybe don't blame the women, blame the soldiers who haven't been trained well enough to not suppress that innate, if they call it innate desire to protect women.
Why'd you do this for? It is innate. It is innate. What makes you think it isn't? It's observable reality, dude. Now you're saying something that we can see in real life may not be true. This makes you a liar, dude.
Because you got to suppress all kinds of other things in combat.
Dude, if men suppressed protecting women over everything else, war would collapse. And I'm all for that. Thing is, you're not really for that.
Can't tell me that you can't also suppress that instinct. Okay. So I mean, though maybe the Israeli Defense Forces, they don't suppress anything because they just like killing civilians left and right.
Now, why are you bringing it to Israel? This is true worldwide, culture-wide. This is human nature.
The most quote unquote moral army in the world. I need some tea, excuse me. Okay, all right. Continuing here, continuing.
Compromising mission goals. And there's another obvious problem. As Anna Simons, professor of defense analysis at the Naval Postgraduate School, observes, men and women have been each other's most consistent distraction since the beginning of time. To pretend that we don't know what will happen when men and women are thrown together for prolonged periods and emotionally intense situations defies common sense.
Now, what I'm pointing out about Simon here is that she's telling a lie. She's trying to equate the genders. Female soldiers can and will watch male soldiers die. They do not have the same protective instincts for male soldiers as male soldiers do for female soldiers. So she's taking something that's not equal and trying to make it equal. She's trying to make it women sound better.
Preparing for battle and battle itself is stressful enough. Why would we want to introduce sexual tension into the mix?
He's saying Jesus Christ, but dude, that's not saying it's not true.
Oh my God. Okay, so
See us has to struggle here. They said something that's true. You're better off just not bothering with this rather than trying to fight a losing battle.
right. So okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay, whatever. So here's the thing.
No, not whatever. They said something true.
Right. There used to be back in the classical era, so like the Greeks, the Romans, there would be combat, especially amongst the Greeks, they would have homosexual combat units. And a lot of these guys weren't gay, they just were with each other all the time. And it was sort of a cultural thing that they would end up engaging in sexual acts together.
Wow, there's nothing dehumanizing about that, is there? Men are thrown into, into war. They become soldiers, and they're away from women so long, they start engaging in homosexual acts. That's really dehumanizing. Not homosexuality itself, but the fact that a straight man would engage in it because they're not around women. Right? This is something women have never had to suffer, dude.
That might be distracting, right?
No, it isn't distracting. Because these men who bang each other are still willing to see one another die in battle. So, dude, you are going to try and defeat this, and you can't. You have no ammunition.
But they weren't gay. Okay, I'm just saying. Some of them probably were gay, but my point is you can have sexual tension even in scenarios where it's all men, and even if it's all straight men. Think of prisons. In prisons, you have a bunch of men together, and oftentimes they end up engaging in sexual acts with each other. Same within.
That's neither here nor there. Because having sex with one another as men doesn't mean that men aren't willing to sacrifice one another. That's the point. This is what it's not sex itself.
All male unit militaries, even if they're all straight. Sexual tension can happen anywhere. Okay, I understand the point here, but I feel like that is more of an issue of the men having patriarchal views. And
So, yeah, this what makes this guy no better than PragerU, right? So men suffering like this is patriarchal, right? So you're admitting that a patriarch is a servant, he's a slave, he's there to suffer. There is no patriarchy, guys. There's never has been a culture where women were forced to go to war and men sit and put their heels up, ever. Patriarchy doesn't exist.
not being trained well enough to suppress those things, okay, than it is with women being there. Now that one, I could see people disagreeing with me on. I'd have to look more into that, but they're definitely overgeneralizing here, and they're assuming that
Again, see, if their generalizations don't fit his motivations, then they're overdoing it, right? When he generalizes just the right amount.
when it's just a bunch of men together, there is no sexual tension. Trust me, there's sexual tension.
Not to mention
Yeah, but sexual attention between men doesn't stop their mission from being accomplished. That's the difference.
the strainless places on supervising
Because it's not really about sexual tension. It's about men putting women above the mission.
officers who now have to deal with the sexual dynamics in addition to their traditional responsibilities. Does this sound like a strategy for mission success? But all these warnings were ignored.
Jesus.
Defense Secretary Leon Panetta famously said, "If women can meet the qualifications for the job, then they should have the right to serve." But
See how he plays it? The right to serve. It isn't a right. It's an obligation. The obligation to serve. I don't consider obligations rights.
when women couldn't
Yeah.
meet those standards,
Yeah, well, what's wrong? Then what's wrong with that? Like, yeah, if women can meet the qualifications for the job, then they should have the right to serve.
Shut up, dude. The obligation to serve, and they don't. And they don't want it. If women really wanted to be part of the front lines, men would open up the door.
Also, folks, the American military is struggling for recruitment. I am not pro-military here.
Yeah, exactly. You know why? Because men don't want those obligations. If it was a great right that men could exercise, men would recruit with no problems. No, no one wants that obligation. No one wants that threat to their lives. Did you go to the recruiting office? No, because you don't want to get your face shot off any more than me or the guy next to us. It's an obligation that men are forced into. So don't bother trying to frame this as a right.
But we have a big issue with recruiting new people to the military because our population is extremely unhealthy. We have high rates of obesity, diabetes.
No, don't make excuses. You just don't want to go. You look healthy. Why don't you join the war movement? Because you don't want to.
Heart disease, mental health issues. Like, we're having a hell of a time recruiting new people to the military. Can we really afford to be like, well, no, that person's a woman. Yeah, she meets all the physical standards, but she's a woman. No, we can't. I mean,
Your framing is a total lie. Women do not want to go. That's why they're not being recruited. And men know it, so they don't force them.
we can't afford that. Okay.
the response wasn't to rethink the policy, it was to lower the standards. When two women graduated Ranger School and
I got to tell you, I don't think that's true. I have not seen any.
You are lying then, dude. Because it's a simple Google search away. Army physical fitness test. 42 push-ups within 2 minutes for males aged 17 to 21 and 19 for females of the same age group. So they don't have the same standard. That's a simple fact. So if you're disagreeing with reality. and I can dismiss anything you have to say.
Anything that makes that true. I have not seen any evidence that they lowered standards. If that is true,
Okay, so you haven't looked or you're lying? Which one is it?
would someone send an article to me in the YouTube comments? I have not seen that to be true at all. I
Really?
haven't seen any evidence of that.
You haven't seen evidence of women doing fewer push-ups than men? Why don't you gather all your friends together, your male and female friends, and see how many push-ups they can do?
The standards are the same.
2015, it was only
No, the standards aren't the same. You're just telling a bold-faced lie at this point.
after multiple attempts and what military insiders described as unusual command interest.
Yeah.
Again, if you're going to argue like this so pathetically, at least come out with the proper conclusion. You want to see equality. You want to see one woman for every guy in the front lines. Say it. And then I can honestly say you are the opposite of PragerU.
Unusual command interest because this was the year that they started accepting women to frontline roles. So they were still working out the details. And these women didn't have nearly as much experience as the men. So yeah, give them a few chances because they haven't had a chance yet at all to do frontline stuff. They might need a few chances. And
No. They had all the chances in the world. They just didn't want to. You know, the nobility, they could have picked cottons along with the black guys. They didn't want to, dude. Cotton pickers, cotton picking is for the peasantry. It's for the slave class.
yeah, of course they're taking interest in it, the command, because it's a new policy and they need to make sure that they're implementing it correctly.
At West Point, physical tests have employed gender-adjusted thresholds. In the Army physical fitness test, male soldiers had to perform 84 push-ups in 2 minutes. Women, just 42. That's not equality.
And you know why? Because up until recently, women didn't have to serve in frontline roles.
Really? So that makes them not be able to do push-ups? Dude, I thought you said there were athletic women out there. So there are female athletes. How come they can't do the same number of push-ups?
So women going to West Point and things like that did not have to worry about going to the front lines, so they had lower physical standards because they were not going to be serving on the front lines. Okay.
Wow, you finally came out and said the truth. They don't have to. It's not because their rights are being held back. They don't have to.
Okay. So yeah, if that's still the case, then yeah, they should adjust it. They should make the physical standards equal.
Shut up, you excuse maker. I don't know if I'm bothered with the last 4 minutes. We'll soldier through.
I don't know if that's the case. I expect it's not because God knows we can't trust PragerU.
That's a compromise with reality that war will never make. The Pentagon, under President Obama, and then even more so under President Biden, prioritized ideology over effectiveness.
Is that so?
The military, whose only purpose is to fight and win wars, was turned into a social laboratory.
Really?
Valor knows no gender, Obama said.
Yeah, it
Maybe
doesn't.
so, but strength.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Women don't need to struggle for valor. Valor is for men, dude. Because women don't have to prove anything to be accepted by society. Only us peasants have to prove ourselves. So what they just claimed is true.
Speed and lethality do.
Jesus
In November
Christ.
2024, when
No,
people
don't pull that horseshit, dude. The homeless population is 90+% male. Because if men don't perform, we are tossed aside. That's why men have to go for valor.
Hegseth was nominated for Secretary of Defense, the issue returned to the spotlight.
The moron.
Critics attacked Hegseth for saying we should not have women in combat
Hegseth is a moron, but he's a woman worshiper, which makes him no worse than you.
roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated.
Oh my God, they're such babies. All these like so-called alpha males, like Pete Hegseth claiming, like a lot of the people who support him, like, oh, yeah, such an alpha. Trump is such an alpha. But they're like, it's made fighting more complicated. Ooh.
So you're saying they're babies because they don't force women into combat roles? Maybe you're right, but you're not forcing them, are you? You're not for forcing actual equality. The only thing you have a problem with is them speaking their minds like this. They're not bragging women up. That's it. That makes you one of them.
It's it hasn't made us more effective. We shouldn't have women in combat roles. It's like, calm down, buddy. Calm down. Jesus Christ.
You're the one getting excited, dude.
And again, as I said before, those studies that were released showed that they were just as effective in accomplishing their missions. Okay. Just because we're not all barbarians who want to run into battle screaming like berserkers, me big man, me run in there with sword, okay, doesn't mean that you can't have an effect.
Well, you're the one who's claimed that there were only female snipers, right? So they never had to run into battle, right?
Effective combat unit with women in it.
Dude, this is gibberish. Unless you come out and you say openly that you want one woman for every guy in the front lines, then you are no better than PragerU.
He's right. And deep down, everyone knows
Jesus.
it.
Deep down, how scientific, right? Deep down, everyone knows it, right?
Government is to keep its citizens safe. To do that, our armed forces must be governed by biological and cultural realities, not the fictions of gender theorists. No one wants to go to war,
Jesus.
but if it becomes necessary, let's not make things more complicated than they have to be. Keep women away from combat.
Why are they making it so complicated? Why are they making it so complicated?
It's not complicated, dude. There's nothing complicated about this. They're keeping it simple. Death is for men. Sacrifice is for men. Suffering is for men. Women don't have to go through that. They don't want women to go through those things. This is all very, very simple.
We don't have enough troops. We need more troops. Women have shown that they can accomplish the same objectives and units as men can. Why not let them be part of the troops?
It's not, they don't want to be, you lying sack. They don't want to be. Put the draft out for women, and we'll see how women react. We'll see how much they want to grab a hold of this right.
Men have to shoulder the entire burden of going to war for pointless reasons. Why doesn't the whole country shoulder that burden?
But it's not for pointless reasons. Their reasons are the same reasons as yours. Female worship. Men want to be selected by women. They want women to validate them. And they do it through war. They do it through the sacrifice of other men so they themselves don't have to be sacrificed. When men go to war, it's not really for self-sacrifice. They want to sacrifice other men. They know they're taking a chance that they'll get sacrificed, but their aim is to sacrifice other men to gain validation from women. Now, I'm definitely not going to do the last minute. This guy, I like his hat because it shows you exactly what he is. You, what's your name? Something Revolt, Casual Revolt. You are exactly the same as PragerU, where it counts. I'm the opposite of what you guys are. You aren't the opposite of them. Know it.